Welcome to Phrasal Verb Practice. This is the place to learn real English, one phrasal verb at a time. My name is Marissa, and I'll walk you through this learning journey. Hello, everyone. Trust you're all well. In today's session, we'll cover and practice the phrasal verb fall apart. So let's talk about what fall apart really means. When we say fall apart, there are a few very common situations where we use it, but they're all connected. First, we use fall apart in a very literal way. This is when something breaks into pieces because it's old, weak, or damaged. For example, the old book fell apart in my hands. The chair fell apart after years of use. The toy fell apart when it hit the floor. Now, another way we often use fall apart is to talk about emotions. Here, fall apart means losing emotional control. Someone feels overwhelmed, stressed, or unable to cope. For example, she fell apart after hearing the news. He fell apart under the pressure. I almost fell apart during that difficult week. There's also a very common use of fall apart for situations and plans. We use fall apart when something stops working or completely fails. For example, the plan fell apart at the last minute. Their schedule fell apart because of delays. The project fell apart without clear communication. So here's the key idea. In every case, fall apart means that something loses structure, control, or stability. Now, let's connect this idea to other languages. In Spanish, fall apart is like desmoronarse or venirse abajo. In French, it's s'effondrer. In Portuguese, desabar or desmoronar. In Italian, crollare or andare in pezzi. In German, auseinanderfallen. In Japanese, moreru. And in Chinese, bonquei or sanja. Now, when do people usually use fall apart? People use fall apart when something breaks or stops working. When a person can't handle stress or emotions. When plans fail or collapse. When situations become unstable. Or when control is lost. Let's quickly look at a few clear examples. The suitcase fell apart during the trip. She fell apart emotionally after the meeting. The agreement fell apart before it was signed. He felt like everything was falling apart at once. The system fell apart without proper support. Now let's talk about how fall apart works grammatically. The phrasal verb fall apart is inseparable. That means we never split the verb and apart. We usually use it without an object. For example, the plan fell apart. She fell apart under stress. Because there's no object, we don't use pronouns with this phrasal verb. All right, let's finish with some practice. First, you'll read a short text from everyday life. Then, you'll read another text in a professional or office context. Are you ready? Let's start. Last week felt like one of those weeks where everything slowly started to fall apart. It didn't happen all at once. It was little things. On Monday morning, my alarm didn't go off, and my routine immediately began to fall apart. I rushed out of the house without breakfast and forgot my keys, which made me feel like the whole day was already starting to fall apart. By the time I got home that evening, I noticed the handle on my favorite mug had finally fallen apart. It was old, but seeing it break made the day feel heavier than it should have. I tried to laugh it off, but inside, I could feel myself starting to fall apart emotionally. The next day wasn't much better. My plans to cook dinner quickly fell apart when I realized I was missing half the ingredients. I stood in the kitchen, tired and hungry, watching my plan completely fall apart. I ordered food instead and sat on the couch, telling myself tomorrow would be better. Midweek, my sister called and started talking about her own problems. As she spoke, she fell apart on the phone, and I could hear how overwhelmed she was. I tried to stay calm for her, even though I felt like I might fall apart too. By Thursday, the house felt messy, my schedule was off, and my motivation had completely fallen apart. Even small decisions felt hard. I went to bed early, hoping rest would help. On Friday morning, something shifted. I cleaned one small corner of the apartment. That simple action stopped things from continuing to fall apart. Later that day, I fixed a few plans and reached out to a friend. The week wasn't perfect, but it wasn't completely falling apart anymore. Sometimes things do fall apart. Objects break, plans fail, emotions overflow. But little by little, they can come back together too. Great, that was the first text. How many times did you hear the phrasal verb of the day? Now, let's move on to the second text. Monday started with a clear plan, but by mid-morning, things began to fall apart. The system we relied on went down, and the smooth schedule we had built quickly started to fall apart. Emails piled up, meetings were delayed, and everyone could feel the tension rising. During the first meeting of the day, our timeline slowly fell apart as new issues came up. One task depended on another, and once one piece failed, the rest seemed to fall apart too. I looked around the room and saw teammates trying to stay calm, even though the situation was clearly starting to fall apart. After lunch, I sat at my desk trying to reorganize my priorities. What worried me most was watching a teammate fall apart emotionally. The pressure had been building for weeks, and now it showed. I stepped in to help, knowing that if people fall apart, the work usually follows. Later in the afternoon, we had a call with a client. The presentation didn't load, and the talking points weren't clear. For a moment, it felt like the entire call might fall apart. We paused, adjusted, and slowly brought the conversation back on track. By the end of the day, the original plan had completely fallen apart, but something else had formed in its place. We stayed late, shared updates, and supported each other. The stress didn't disappear, but it stopped everything from continuing to fall apart. On Friday, we reviewed the week. We admitted what didn't work and how certain decisions caused things to fall apart. At the same time, we recognized how the team responded when things started to fall apart. The project wasn't perfect, and some parts still felt fragile. But instead of letting everything fall apart, we learned how to hold it together better next time. Great, that was the second text, and that's all for today. Thank you so much for following this channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.